Welcome to Pittsburgh. The Steelers have went out and signed 16 players to this roster. Yesterday was cut down day. They had to trim their roster to 53 players, so they cut a lot of guys. And now today, they re-signed some of them and signed some other players to this roster to make this practice squad full again. But first, before I get into who those players are and their introduction to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now let's get right into it. So the Steelers have went out and re-signed defensive back Beanie Bishop Jr. I know this was a big one. Many Steelers fans were mad that the Steelers decided to cut him from this roster yesterday because he had 4 interceptions in his rookie season and was a solid player. And when you show it in your rookie year, you have potential to be better and better every season. And Beanie Bishop Jr. showed instincts, and he showed that he could be a solid slot cornerback for this team. And he's only going to get better. So some Steelers fans are pissed off that he was cut, but today he cleared waivers, and the Steelers have decided to sign him back to this team. So I guess that's a good thing. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers have cut defensive back Sebastian Castro, defensive back Deshaun Jamison, James Pierre, and Daryl Porter. So going through that group, Sebastian Castro is obviously a name here, and James Pierre as well. Sebastian Castro is the guy who the Pittsburgh Steelers could use as a versatile player who can move all around the defensive back group and also play some linebacker if needed in a bunch. And then James Pierre is also a shock when he was cut from this team because he actually played good in the preseason, and he's a solid player. He could play defense at a high level sometimes when filling in for others, and he has been the highest played games for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the last 3 years, so it was surprising that he got cut. And also he's a player who's a gunner. He's really good at special teams, and he can be back on this team, the main roster, in some capacity during the season. But for right now, those guys are on the practice squad. Also, the Steelers have signed defensive lineman Baugh and DeMarvin Leal to this practice squad as well. DeMarvin Leal also being the big name because he was a 3rd round pick by the Steelers a few years back. He showed out during the preseason. He's switching positions, basically playing all over this defensive line, moving to edge rusher, and he was pretty solid. He's making that transition pretty well, and he had some glimpses of playing really well. And some Steelers fans wanted him to make this roster. I thought he potentially could have. I wanted to see him as the edge rusher position for a little bit longer to see if he could be a useful player on this team. But no, he was cut, but it's good that he's brought back to the practice squad, and he can be elevated for a game here and there during the season if needed. So, glad to have him back. The Pittsburgh Steelers have also signed Julius Welschof, offensive lineman Dylan Cook, offensive lineman Stephen Jones. They've signed running back Nichols and Trey Sermon. They've signed tight end J.J. Galbreath. And just going through that little group of players right there, the players that are well known are probably Dylan Cook because he was on this roster last season. He was cut from the team probably to keep some other guys like Andres Pete and Kelvin Anderson. But Dylan Cook, it's glad to have him on the practice squad, and he may be needed here and there. Also, it's good to have Nichols and Trey Sermon on the practice squad because they showed out during the preseason and camp. And I know some people wanted those guys to make the roster because they can be used in some capacity, and they showed out, so why not have them on the team? But the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously cut them for a reason because they probably would have never got used in an actual game compared to other guys they have on the roster. They probably knew they would clear waivers, but now they're back on the practice squad, so that's a good thing as well. Looking at some other players, wide receiver Max Hurleman returns to the practice squad. Keyshawn Williams returns to the practice squad, and Robert Woods returns to this team as well. So those players, all 3 of them, I'm really happy the Steelers signed them to the practice squad because all of them could be used in some capacity. For example, Max Hurleman is a player who showed out during the preseason, had a really solid showing, and he can be used in some capacity if they need him, if injuries happen. Keyshawn Williams had a good preseason as well. He showed some things on special teams as a punt returner, being able to make people miss, make the first person miss and gain yardage. And when you could do that and show it on special teams, you may find a spot on the Steelers team because of Danny Smith. And obviously Robert Woods is that veteran. Some people thought that he was a guaranteed lock to make this roster. I know some Steelers insiders were shocked that he was actually released. And it was reported by Ian Rappaport that he is expected back in some capacity during the season and a reunion could happen. And to be honest with you, Robert Woods would be the biggest elevation on this team in terms of these guys if they actually get elevated during the game because of his experience, because of what we know he brings to the table and what he's done in past years, that route running, that veteran presence. So Robert Woods, if there's one player that's going to get elevated from the practice squad out of these wide receivers, it would be him. So it's glad to see a veteran actually on the practice squad, because usually that doesn't happen. Usually Robert Woods would just go into free agency, maybe sign with a different team. So him being on the practice squad as a veteran shows that he really likes his team and wants to be back with this Steelers group. So that does it. Those are the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad additions to this roster in 2025 initially, and that is 16 players signed. Obviously, things will change. Other players could be added to this group. Players will be released from this group. There's going to be changes throughout the season to this practice squad in terms of the guys getting elevated and signed to the main roster, guys getting cut from it, new players being added, new players being dropped. I'll cover all of that. But initially, this is the 16 players the Pittsburgh Steelers will have going into the regular season. So just because I jumped all over the place and talked about each player individually, I'll just go through the group once again. Beanie Bishop Jr., Sebastian Castro, Deshaun Jamison, James Pierre, Dale Porter, Kyler Baugh, DeMarvin Leal, Julius Welschof, Dylan Cook, Stephen Jones, Lou Nichols, Trey Sermon, JJ Galbreath, Max Hurleman, Keyshawn Williams, and Robert Woods. Those are the 16 players. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers have added other players to this roster on the IR. For example, Corey Trice. You may have seen that he didn't make the 53-man roster, but he was placed on injury reserve, meaning that he will be on this team and he will be activated when he is healthy. So it is kind of funny that with these players being signed to the Steelers practice squad, when you look at the cuts the Pittsburgh Steelers made yesterday, they trimmed their roster to 53. None of the players that they released, cut from the team, signed to a different team, or was claimed off of waivers to another team. All of the players the Steelers cut cleared waivers, and the Steelers were able to get everyone who they wanted back on the practice squad. And basically the same thing with other teams. Every player that was cut from a different team in the NFL, the Steelers didn't claim any of them. They made it put in waivers, but their priority wasn't high enough for them to actually get them. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they basically just get all the players back that they wanted from this roster that they cut yesterday. So that's a little funny thing. Everything that was made a big deal, oh, why was this player cut? Why was this player cut? We shouldn't have cut this player. Well, they made it back on the roster, but on the practice squad, if the Steelers actually wanted them back. For example, Beanie Bishop Jr., because that was made a big deal yesterday. Anyway, that's the end of this video, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. On these 16 players that were signed to the practice squad, who are you most glad that we were able to get back? Me personally, I believe James Pierre is a huge addition to this practice squad, and for one reason, and that's special teams, being the gunner. Before he was signed back to this roster last season, the Steelers' gunners and special teams were not good, and once he was added and signed back after he was released from his previous team, the Steelers got so much better at coverage on special teams. So I believe he's an underrated player that even though he's not really great at defense, he's a solid defensive player, but mainly special teams is a key addition to this roster, and glad to have him back. And he probably will be a game day elevation because of that sole reason. Also, obviously love having Beanie Bishop Jr. back on this team. That's a great addition because he was a rookie, he showed out, and now he gets to be back for year 2. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on that, on your players that you like being back. And also, who would you wish the Steelers signed that they didn't sign? Make sure you also subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports, everything surrounding this team. I have you covered all season long. Every new signing is on the channel, and I'll continue covering it throughout the season, just like I did the entire offseason, also with highlights and analysis. So stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe for the best spot for Pittsburgh Steelers football coverage, Steelers report, and until that next video tomorrow, that's it for me. I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.